Alright, we're looking for something. Finding a quiet place in LA is impossible, or at least highly improbable. So I grew up in both the Catholic and Orthodox churches as a kid. Went to Catholic school for 12 years. For the first 8 years, every single week, Catholic Mass. I was baptized Orthodox, so that meant I ended up going to Orthodox church every Sunday. For 8 years, I went to church twice a week. And when I was about 13, I ended up going to church camp, as we did every summer, Orthodox church camp. I'd been taking communion in both churches, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. I was really confused at this whole notion that if this was a sacred sacrament, if this was a way of communing with the divine, then why were these two churches, who do basically the exact same thing, why are they condemning each other? While I was at this church camp at age 13, I ended up talking to the Orthodox priest. It was an Orthodox church camp. Ended up talking to the Orthodox priest about it. A little background before what I just get into. Orthodox priests can marry, Catholic priests can't. That'll be important in a sec. I tell him that I'm taking communion in the Catholic Church during a confession, the traditional confession in these churches. He gives me this analogy saying, you taking communion in the Catholic Church, now this guy was married, is like me sleeping with another woman. At age 13, I went,
We're gonna call timeout.
Did he just equate communion to adultery? To a 13-year-old? Just starting to deal with sexuality, no less, too. At that moment, I actually hit the ejector seat. When it came to religion, I said, there's no way I will ever come close to being or doing anything anywhere like that to anyone in this world. Pretty much removed myself from identifying as religious in any particular fashion. It would come as a little bit of a surprise to me that many, many years later, I am initiated into the depths of soul, into this place that I didn't think existed. I'm not the first person that this has happened to. It shook the foundation of everything that I knew, everything I believed in. Confusion, frustration, loneliness, pain, emotional pain, physical pain. I seemingly had everything that I needed. I had the car, I had a condo that I had bought, I had a good job, I lived in a great place, had good friends and family and support, and I was miserable. New spot. There was one particular night I was driving home. Now this story, it may sound heavy, but you gotta know that all things turn out well in the end. It's with the beeping. I'm driving home with this one particular night after having dinner with my mother. And the emotional pain I was in got so great that I actually started to think, what would this really look like if I tried running myself off the road? I've done this drive for years, over a decade. This particular night, I started imagining in one spot along the way, driving off the road. And I didn't realize it at the time. I realized this later, once I had more experiences like this, that what actually happened was I dropped into a meditation and I was shown what would happen. So I'm in this space and I see that the truck would roll and I would survive. I'd break both my legs, the truck would be totaled, and I would have brain damage. I remember seeing that and going, well, there's got to be a cleaner way than that. And then in that moment, the whole thing shifted. It was incredibly quiet. I was in this empty space, and there was a gun in my hand. And I could feel it, the cold of the metal, the weight of it, the pressure of the trigger on my finger. I remember holding it up to my head here. And I just asked the question, can I do this? Like some part of me asked that question. And in the silence, in this empty space, there was no answer. And then a little time later, not very long, I just said, well, let's find out. And in that moment, I started to squeeze the trigger. And in the instant I did that, I heard a voice just say no. It wasn't loud, it wasn't soft, it was just present. It just said no. In in that moment, it shook me out of the meditation, and I'm back in my truck and I'm driving. I was driving this whole time. And I realize what had just happened, and I start wailing the biggest wail of my life. Even in that space, something told me no, and yet I don't know how to live. I was offered a choice. And this was another meditation where I was shown a doorway, and this doorway didn't have a door, but it was obscured by black smoke. You could see the frame of the door, but you couldn't see through the door. And the choice I was given was, you can either continue living the way that you've been living, and you know how that turns out, or you can walk into the dark. I didn't make the choice right away. I remember thinking about it for a few days, and I landed on, of all things, something in my logic brain. If I was going to kill myself, then effectively the value of all things in my life, all relationships, all money, all belongings, all go to zero. So what do I have to lose? Nothing. What's $150 to go to a spirit cleanser lady that was recommended by my friend Jennifer? Nothing. So I chose to walk into the dark, and thus began learning what is in the dark and what comes out on the other side. And it is the most spectacular things you could ever imagine, and well beyond what you can't.